Former Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard says the Democrat Party has left God behind. Once a Democrat herself, she is now being talked about as a potential vice presidential candidate for Donald Trump. Recently, she spoke with David Brody about why she no longer recognizes the party she once served.
Tulsi Gabbard feels like a woman liberated, free from a party she left nearly 2 years ago and no longer recognizes.
Thank you.
During our conversation, she spoke her mind, something that doesn't often go over well in certain Washington circles.
You're a free thinker.
Yes.
The establishment does not like free thinkers and a free-thinking society.
You're exactly right. This has been my experience throughout my time involved in national politics, especially. Independent-minded people, common sense-minded people, independent free thinkers are not welcome in Washington.
That theme played out in her new book, For Love of Country, Leave the Democrat Party Behind. She says the elites are a direct threat to our Constitution.
That abuse of power that we're seeing coming from the Democrat elite right now, and increasingly so in increasingly brazen ways, is a direct threat to our fundamental freedoms, our democracy, and the rule of law.
Enter Donald Trump.
The left is saying he's a threat to democracy and is also saying that he's ready to jail his political opponents at the same time the Biden's DOJ is looking to jail Biden's top opponent.
And of course, Donald Trump and what they're doing to him is the most public abuse of the Department of Justice, and you're exactly right.
Gabbard feels it goes beyond the former president to ordinary Americans. Examples include a DOJ crackdown on pro-life protesters, parents at school board meetings, and challenging the government's COVID procedures.
Why are they not willing to allow freedom of speech for different healthcare professionals who are challenging the government narrative on this thing?
That spirit also led her to challenge her former party and the D.C. establishment on the approach to foreign wars.
You have said you're not an isolationist or an interventionist, you're a realist.
Their emotional knee-jerk reaction is like, well, we've just got to go drop some bombs, or we've got to go punish this bad guy, or we've got to go and topple this dictator of this country. So short-sighted, and as we've seen over the last 20-plus years, so often over and over end up putting us in a position where it has undermined our own national security interests and come at the cost of countless lives and American taxpayer dollars.
Is there a difference between funding Israel and funding Ukraine? Like, how do you see that exactly? I'm just curious about that.
Yes, there's a very clear
radical
difference.
Islamic extremism is what Israel is on the front lines of every day.
There is a very real difference. Putin was wrong to invade Ukraine. There's no question about it. There's a lot of historical context that went into that, but the bottom line is we should have had a president who would have gone in very early and negotiated a peaceful end to that war as quickly as possible. Save lives, save American taxpayer dollars. When you look at what's happening in the war between Israel and Hamas, and it is a war between Israel and Hamas, a radical Islamist terrorist group, this is just the latest front of this war that's been waged for a very long time between these radical Islamist terrorist groups that have been waging it militarily and ideologically. This is in our best interests.
As she went off the elitist reservation, she quickly encountered resistance. In 2019, Hillary Clinton suggested the Russians were grooming her to run for president. Gabbard says part of the elitist playbook is smearing free thinkers. When the Hawaii Congresswoman did run that year and scored a solid debate night, she found her Google Ads account had been mysteriously suspended.
It is not only the Democrat elite who are in power, the elected leaders, but it is their partners in big tech and companies like Google. It is their partners in the mainstream media. Their amassed powers and their collusion is all working towards one specific purpose. They want power.
For Gabbard, through it all, she relied on her Hindu faith.
My desire is to be pleasing to God, first and foremost.
Hinduism and Christianity, obviously, they're different.
Yes.
This just in. Very different, actually.
Well, I think I'll just point out Hinduism is probably one of the most misunderstood religions.
Okay.
It's, for me, really more about a spiritual practice.
Speaking of God, the Democrats and God, you talk a lot about that in this book. You say they walked away from God. They walked away from objective truth.
Yes.
To make the case, she talks about the Democrats intentionally blurring the lines of two genders and supporting what they label gender-affirming care.
They themselves are removing these guardrails in our society that the truth then becomes whatever they deem it to be, putting themselves in that position of trying to be God.
Is it a form of child abuse here?
It is. It is clearly a form of child abuse. Them targeting the most vulnerable people in our country who don't have the ability to, as an adult does, to make clear decisions for themselves.
Her message proclaiming common sense and free thinking will be on display during this 2024 campaign season. Could it be as Trump's VP? Her name is out there.
For me to be in a position now where I can reach out to and connect with folks who may not have ever considered voting for a Republican or voting for Donald Trump before, there's an opportunity here to remind people of our responsibility as citizens to put our country first.
And when it comes to Tulsi Gabbard, she's seeking to make it loud and clear that it's not party first, it's America first.
I wrapped in the spirit of aloha. Thank you.
Thank you. Aloha.
David Brody, CBN News, Washington.
Well, that's an inside look that you probably won't see anywhere else. Tulsi's mother, she converted to Hinduism and then raised Tulsi in that faith. Tulsi actually means holy basil. So am I going to agree with her on her approach to God or even what her ideas about God are? The answer is no, I'm not. I'm a Christian. But I love America, and in America, there is no religious test for office. I love that. I love that it's a secular state, that all people from all faiths come together and we elect representatives for us that say, here's what I want to do if I get elected. Here are the policies that I'm going to implement. And then you and I get to decide. And it's we, the people of the United States, get to govern ourselves. And everybody gets to participate. I love that, and we should all defend that. Well, Gabbard's book is called For Love of Country, and you can find it wherever books are sold.